Larry Smith, Brad Sturdy, Mike Cagley, Big Sports Radio. Glad you're here with us. Fellas, first off, Merry Christmas to you guys. Did you have a good Christmas? Was Santa good to you?
Santa's always good to me. You know, I have a really good relationship with him. So he takes care of me. But no, yeah, it was good. I mean, I got some good stuff. Had a little. We have a Christmas tradition. We go out for hibachi on Christmas Eve, and then we do a hibachi grill. You know, it's kind of, you know, so we can be like, the Christmas Story kind of, but not exactly. But then have some steak on Christmas Day. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, Christmas is a lot of fun, and now you've got the NFL tangling with the NBA, so there's plenty to watch all day long.
Yeah.
So, I'm entertained.
Yeah, and then a bowl game or two as well. It was almost too much. Like I'm trying to find enough screens to put everything on there. So, good Christmas here at the in-laws, and I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, guys. Brother-in-law, huge SEC fan, diehard Georgia fan to the point that when they were losing first quarter against Georgia Tech, he went and took his Georgia shirt off. When they were losing in the second quarter to Georgia Tech, he went and took a shower. Okay, so he's a real diehard Georgia fan. So I'm going to say this for Georgia fans, for SEC fans. Listen closely. I don't do this often. 2024 just was simply not your year. Now, you may in 2025, Georgia or Texas may win it all. It's possible. But I'm tired of hearing the excuses about, oh, my God, well, Penn State can't win the big one or Alabama should have been in. You didn't win the game, okay? Indiana lost only once, but they lost once. Alabama, if you don't lose Oklahoma, you're in. So it's not your year. It's just the way you're killing it in basketball. You're kicking ass in basketball. Good for you. But I'm tired of hearing SEC football making excuses of why this didn't happen, why he didn't host a game, why isn't Alabama, No, enough. It's the new playoff. All right, go ahead.
Well, I can't disagree with you, Larry. Can I throw more onto the fire though?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Let's think about this. The SEC and the Big Ten in basketball, we hear about SEC so great. You know what the record is head to head? 9-9. 9-9. Yes. Yeah. But because Auburn and Tennessee have been so good in those matchups, and you had a couple here and there, but the bottom of the Big Ten has won some games. So I mean, there's been a lot of them that haven't played, but yeah, so I don't think it's quite as far, but I do think the SEC has best basketball. But one thing I will say, I don't know if Georgia or Texas are going to win, and I think they both have the talent to win. But throughout this year, they have not been the best conference in football, and they may be the deepest conference in some respects. And they may have, you may have said they had 6 teams that legitimately could have had an argument for the playoff, and they really only about 5 in the Big Ten who could legitimately make an argument for the playoff. That may make sense. That may be true, but there is after seeing all these teams, you've seen all these teams play. The Big Ten teams got the job done when they needed to. Alabama did not. Ole Miss did not. South Carolina did not. It's just that simple. That's why they're not in, and that's just the reality.
Look, the bottom line is the SEC this year is not the SEC that we're used to. There were multiple teams I kept track of every week in my Heat Checks and Hail Mary column and podcast that had an opportunity to cruise in at 2 losses. They didn't do it, and they ended up in a bad place. And you basically look at the best team, in my opinion, in the SEC at the end of the year. Maybe didn't have the best record, was South Carolina, but you couldn't put them in because earlier in the year they lost to Alabama and Ole Miss, who had the same record that they did. The bottom line is all these teams had their opportunities, and they can point back and say, don't lose. If you're Ole Miss, don't lose to Kentucky. I think that's the only SEC game they won. If you're talking about Alabama, don't lose to a mediocre Oklahoma team. And for years we had to hear Nick Saban say, well, you can't lose that many games if you want to go to the BCS. Well, now all of a sudden they don't like that same argument that they've made for 15 years. Life is tough.
Yeah. To your point, here's the bottom line. Strength of schedule, absolutely. Guess what? A 1-loss Alabama team gets in over a 1-loss Indiana team. How you like that? Mm-hmm. There you go. Absolutely.
Even a 2-loss Alabama team gets in.
Sure.
They're in.
Yeah,
If Alabama would have gone 10-2, they are in there and they're seated ahead of SMU, Indiana, whoever. One of those teams isn't in.
Yeah.
Just that simple.
Well, and how can you say an Alabama team that lost by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma wouldn't have got their butts kicked by Notre Dame as well?
Yeah. Yeah. It is just, I mean, it is. So I just want to get that off my chest that, listen, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Yeah. But you guys have ruled in football, but sorry, you can't game the system. You got to win the games. It's the way it is. So, okay. Okay, we move on. Let's get to the games this coming week. Listen, we've got 4 great matchups. Obviously, the one we're all talking about is the one that you talk about getting hosed. Oregon, you're undefeated.
Oh my.
You're number 1 seed, and your first game in the playoff is against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Come on.
Yeah, a team you beat by 1 at home.
Yeah.
And who is arguably, let's be honest, Ohio State is probably the most talented team in the country. If you take out the one game they have to completely tank against Michigan every year, they're the best team. I mean, it's just, I can't figure out how they find a way to lose that game or how they lost that game this year, but Ohio State is the most talented group. Now, they have Ryan Day, so there's always a chance. But this team they were different. They were different against Tennessee. This was the team that everyone expected all season. And boy, if they put it all together, that is not the team you want to see in the first round of the playoffs. But Oregon, your reward for going 13-0 and winning the best conference in college football is you got to play a team from your conference that you've already played, who is probably the most talented team in the country. Yay.
In boxing, it's how you respond to getting knocked down. And when Mike Tyson got knocked down, he usually didn't get back up. When Muhammad Ali got knocked down, he got back up. There's a reason why Muhammad Ali is the greatest. And Ohio State, the last couple of years, when they've gotten knocked down by Michigan, they've went into the fetal position. This year, they got up and they were angry. Now, I don't know if they can do that against Oregon, but this team showed an awful lot of character to me by what they did by dismantling Tennessee, unless we find out that the SEC really isn't that good and maybe Tennessee shouldn't have been there.
Oregon wins by 2 touchdowns. See, we told you exactly. So, or Ohio State. It's the one thing I think when I look at these 4 matchups. Obviously, this is the one that we're talking about, the 1 versus 8. Although, look, a month ago we thought this could be like a 1 versus 2. This is the game we thought might be in the championship for the national title, right? When we talked a month ago, but because of the Michigan game, they miss out on a chance to play Oregon a second time in the Big Ten championship game, and they fall all the way down to an 8 seed the way things are set up right now. But I think the opposite of this being in the Rose Bowl, which is personally my favorite stadium in the entire country, there's no prettier stadium, there's no prettier backdrop, there's no more breathtaking, just the whole area than right there in Pasadena, there in the Valley. And there it is. It's a 5:00 Eastern on New Year's Day. That's the one game I know that I think we'll all be watching. Aside from that game, 3 other quarterfinal games now, all in bowls, and the other 3 in domes. Of those 3, which one is one you're looking forward to watching the most?
Oh my gosh.
Texas, Arizona State, the Peach, Penn State, Boise State, and Fiesta, and then Notre Dame, Georgia, and the Sugar.
So I think Notre Dame, Georgia is really intriguing because I actually think those are 2 really good defenses. But I'm actually just interested to see how Arizona State does against Texas. They were so good at the end of the year, just dominant down the stretch, and they just dismantled Iowa State in that Big 12 title game. So I that's a game I'm interested. Those are the 2 games I'm interested in. I really and obviously watching Boise State though, seeing what they can do against Penn State, because that Penn State defense is no joke, right? But I think the other 2 games appear to me to be much more evenly matched up and down the lineup. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm having a hard time formulating this sentence, but I think Notre Dame's the favorite in my eyes over Georgia with a backup quarterback. I think Notre Dame's going to win. I'm feeling sick to my stomach, but that's what I think. I think Boise State, to see if Gentry, how good he is, I think that's going to be fantastic. He reminds me a little bit. He's got a little bit of Walter Payton in him there, the way he fights for every single yard. Oregon and Ohio State, that could be amazing. It looks like on paper it should be. And this Arizona State team that you really don't think has much chance of winning going into this 3-week break was the hottest team in the country. But can they maintain that? We've seen so many teams that come into bowl season, they take 3 weeks off and they look like somebody else. But if they can maintain that, that might be as exciting as Ohio State and Oregon. Now I know I'm walking into fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me territory. But I'm really excited about these 4 games.
Yeah,
Just like I was a few days back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't wait. I think this is while we lacked the drama in the round 1 games. I mean, I think we won't have that case here. I think that the team I really want to watch is Penn State right now. What started my argument over the holiday with the in-law was that he was trying to say Penn State can't win the big one. And I was trying to explain, well, Penn State with divisions had to play Michigan and Ohio State every year. To his point, he's a Georgia fan. I said, if you were in the West, had to play Alabama and LSU every year, it'd be a different story. And that's when things went south. Okay. We move on from that. We'll talk more semifinal matchups next week on the show. Want to get in some love for Penn State volleyball and what they did, knocking off Louisville on Louisville's home court, by the way, in their city to win the national title. And such a heartwarming story for the Nittany Lions this year.
Yeah, it's really been amazing what they've done. And you look at the semifinal match looked like it was the championship match. They were down I think they were down 2-0 in that semifinal match. Came back, won the final 3 sets, making the championship game. Of course, obviously all the heartwarming stuff with the coach and different things. It's been amazing. And they've been great all season. I think they were overshadowed by the fans that Nebraska and Wisconsin bring to their venues and all those things they've done. But Penn State's been the best team in the Big Ten all year, and they deserve. They got the 1 seed. They went through, and they to win that the way they did on Louisville's home court is most impressive.
Yeah, and they had a ready-made excuse if they got close. Well, we were on their home court, and they this was a road game in reality. But they didn't accept that. And you go out there and win like this. I mean, that's like putting a cherry on top of the sundae. I mean, that's a major league event and good for them.
And love the story. Katie Schumacher-Cagley, again, undergoing treatment for breast cancer, diagnosed in September, the start of the season. They go 35-2. Their record 8th national championship, first since 2014. What a great story there. And obviously, again, we are rooting not only for them, but also for Coach Schumacher-Cagley in her battle as she makes sure she takes on and defeats cancer. We speak it right now. Speaking of coaches, shocker coming up Thursday afternoon, Jim Larinaga resigning mid-season from Miami. Another coach bites the dust in the new world of the NIL and transfer portal. He says, I just don't know if this game's for me.
I think we're seeing more of this. We've seen this. Think about the exodus they've had from the ACC over the past few years, people not wanting to deal with this. And Larinaga, I mean, his point about having 8 guys want to leave after they get to the Final Four just tells you where we're at in college basketball. And, it's difficult to form those bonds with the players when and connections as fans when they're not there. It's a new player every year. You don't know them. And so I think it's tough. And I think from his standpoint, it's like, why do I need to do this? I'm old. What is he? I think he was 71.
75, right? I think
75.
Yeah.
75 years old. Why do I need to keep doing this and deal with this stuff? And it's a young man's deal right now. And that's what he did. And I don't begrudge him at all. Sometimes it's just time.
Yeah. And look, the bottom line is this is a time of high change, and the rules are evolving on a minute by minute basis. I can understand why a coach is like, I don't need to deal with this anymore, especially with the compensation levels that they've had. And, there's a golf course somewhere calling to you where people aren't screaming and yelling that you haven't won enough or haven't won by enough. You know what? I can't blame these guys for wanting to move on into the sunset.
Yeah, I can't either. Hate that the career he's had. Put George Mason on the map with the run to the Final Four back in 2007. The big upset, 11 seed knocking off 1 seed UConn in Washington D.C. to get to Indianapolis, and they fell to Florida then in the semifinals, and then taking Miami to its first ever Final Four as well. So his name is etched in history, both schools, in college. It's unfortunate because he's one of the good ones. But yeah, to your point, we'll talk more about this next week. We get a little more deeper into this when we have some more time. But how about 6 ACC coaches all leaving the game since April of 2021? 5 of them with Final Four experience. And so you wonder why the ACC isn't quite what it used to be. And the Big Ten and the SEC have taken over, and the Big 12 and Big East. That's why. You've got, I think only 2 coaches, Kevin Keats last year, NC State. Yeah.
They reach a point where these are like name guys. I mean, this is Coach K, Roy Williams, Billy Donovan, national championship level coaches. I mean, it's just when they're quitting, it tells you that there's maybe an issue with the way things are done, or maybe it's time for a new guard to come in with the system the way it is.
Yeah, and I do think that this is an evolutionary moment in the game when people step aside. It happens every once in a while, and it's that rare moment when a whole age group is kind of going, yeah, there's easier things to do, and nobody can blame them.
Yeah.
And now we're going to see a whole new world because all these guys with all their talent and all their experience and everything they've learned are just exiting, and now there's going to be a void that has to be filled.
Well, college coaching already is a 365 job, right? And that was before you had to re-recruit your players every year and pay them 6 figures every year, and keep them, eligible academically. I mean, it's a big story. We'll get a lot deeper into this next year, but right now, next week, I should say, it will be next year. This is our year-end show, our final show of 2024. We've got a lot coming up. We're going to look into the year in review in basketball and football here coming up. We'll also look back as well at the Heisman race. And in the second hour, some of our favorite interviews, the great Danny Sheridan joins us. And at the end of the show, our sports year in review, the very biggest stories of the year. It's a very busy way that we will say goodbye to 2024. It's all ahead right here on Big Sports Radio. Keep it here. Much more to come after this.